Meanwhile, there is this. President Biden delivering one of his final speeches as president from the State Department yesterday. He defended his foreign policy decisions, including the 2021 botched Afghanistan withdrawal. Watch.
I can also report to the American people, we're the first president in decades who's not leaving a war in Afghanistan to his successor. In my view, it was time to end the war and bring our troops home, and we did. There is nothing, I can tell you from my conversations with both Xi and Putin, nothing our adversaries and competitors like Russia and China would have liked more than seeing us to continue to be tied down in Afghanistan for another decade. Ending the war was the right thing to do, and I believe history will reflect that. It's clear. My administration is leaving the next administration with a very strong hand to play, and we're leaving them in America with more friends and stronger alliances, whose adversaries are weaker and under pressure.
Strong hand to play. The Wall Street Journal out with this op-ed on Biden's approval of his own record. Mr. Biden, he leaves Mr. Trump having to rebuild the military amid a budget deficit in the range of $2 trillion a year, thanks to his blowout domestic spending. If this is a, quote, strong hand, what would a weak one look like? Joining me now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. Sir, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here, General.
Oh, it's delighted to be here, Maria.
Your reaction to the president's commentary there in this final foreign policy speech?
Yeah, well, it's actually stunning because it's such a rewriting of the facts and history itself. Just start with Afghanistan. We stopped fighting in Afghanistan on the ground in 2014. We had a modest representation of our troops there, 2,500. That's less than what's in one of the 53 brigades in the United States Army. That's how small it is. And when he makes the statement, you know, that we ended the war, well, we didn't end the war. We ended our participation, and we surrendered the country to the Taliban. That's who's in charge of the country. And that is one of the reasons it incentivized our adversaries, because not just because of the chaotic emergency retreat, but what they saw is the United States, after working side by side with a partner, the Afghan government, to deal with the Taliban, who supported the al-Qaeda in killing 3,000 Americans. The reality is we surrendered that very country to our adversary. And they looked at that as being weak on the part of the United States. And this idea that Russia and China really wants us, would not want us to be there. That's for sure. They would not want us to be there. And the fact that he's trying to make the point that they're delighted we're out of there. We had 3 CIA bases on the border of China, 3 CIA bases on the border of Iran, 1 country away from Russia, and also military bases in the region as well. I doubt seriously that Russia and China feels bad about the fact that we're gone out of there. This is sort of ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you just look at what Biden did, Trump turned him over. There was no war in Europe. During the Biden administration, war broke out in Europe, and Russia is threatening NATO. There was no war in the Middle East. During the Biden administration, war breaks out in the Middle East, and Iran operationalized all its proxies to do that. There was President Xi. Trump was the first president to confront President Xi, and he began to build up of the military budget. Biden comes in. Xi is much more aggressive. The most intimidation and aggressive campaigns against Taiwan, the Philippines, and our allies in the region we have seen since he's been in power. And what does the Biden administration do when it comes to the military? Everybody knows that China is outpacing the United States military. It's gone past us, and that's the reality of that. And what does he do? Flat budgets. No increase in the defense budgets for 4 years. He's rewriting the history here, and nobody's going to buy it, Maria.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and also that botched withdrawal put our adversaries on the march. You saw China get much tougher and much more aggressive in terms of their bad behavior. You saw Russia as well, teaming up with China, Iran. So, I mean, there were so many legs to that withdrawal. I don't even know why he put it in the speech.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And listen, his own intelligence service, 4 years after the 2024 State of the Union, 4 days, excuse me, this is what they said, a summary of it. A scheduled briefing to the Congress of the United States. The United States is facing the most dangerous threats from Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea that we have faced in many decades. These are serious and the threats are growing. This is his intelligence service painting a darkest picture of our adversary threats since we have seen since World War II. That's the reality. They were talking to the facts. President Biden is not talking to the facts.
Yeah. Meanwhile, President Trump has said many times those hostages better be released by the time I get into inauguration. We're seeing now news that negotiators are meeting for another round of ceasefire and hostage talks in Qatar today. They reached a breakthrough ahead of Inauguration Day. Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, has been in Doha for these talks, General, working with Middle East advisor Brett McGurk. Axios is reporting that Israel and mediators have given Hamas a final draft agreement and that Hamas's response is expected in the next 24 hours. House National Security Advisor, meanwhile, Jake Sullivan, spoke on the negotiations yesterday. Watch this.
We are close to a deal, and it can get done this week. I'm not making a promise or a prediction, but it is there for the taking, and we are going to work to make it happen. We're going to do everything we can to push it to get it across the line.
Well, I mean, they haven't done a deal all this time that Joe Biden was in office. Trump is about to go in office, and now they have a deal. In the first stage of this potential deal, Hamas would release 33 hostages held in Gaza in exchange for a pause in fighting and the release of some Palestinian prisoners. More hostage negotiations could begin 16 days after that. What is your reaction to what you're seeing in the early going here in terms of the print on a potential deal to get these hostages home?
Well, it seems we've been here before, obviously, been very close, and then it blows up.
Right.
This one seems like it may indeed happen, and it's a very complicated deal. It's a 42-day ceasefire in 3 phases. The first phase, as you enumerated, 33 hostages would be released, and they would be women, children, people who are infirmed or sick, and men over 50. Then in the 16th day, negotiate for the release of the military men who would be the remaining Israeli military men, the remaining hostages, and also high-value Hamas and Palestinian leaders would be released. And the third phase, which is likely the most challenging and complicated phase, it deals with Israel's remaining presence in Gaza. Israel wants to stay in the Philadelphia corridor on the southern border with Egypt, wants to stay in the Netzium corridor, which cuts across Gaza east to west, about splitting Gaza in the middle to maintain outposts there, and also wants to maintain a buffer zone that's inside of Gaza, 2 to 3 kilometers, excuse me, to provide security for their settlements that are existing outside of Gaza. That's the most complicated phase of it, and I think the details are yet to be finished, but hopefully this is a final agreement here. It's long in the coming, and certainly a welcome relief to Israeli citizens and particularly to the families.
Amazing. All right, we'll be watching that. General, always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks so much, sir.
Yeah, great talking, Maria. Take care.
All right. General Jack Keane.